Montezuma's well is known to us as Ahakaskawa, meaning broken or shattered water.
Before it became a well and filled up with water, it is the birth of our creation. That is where we come from as Yavapai people, is from underneath the earth. That is where the first world started for the Yavapai.
It's the place where we originated as a people, living under the ground in the well before there was water, and then emerging from the well into our current existence.
Our people still go back to the well to drink water from it, to pray.
To this day, even not only us, the Hopis go there and they get the water at the south side for their baby washing ceremonies, for their other ceremonies that they do.
And it'll always be a special place to us because it's where we come from. The 4 remaining sub-tribes are the Coevcapayas, who are the southeastern Yavapai people, today primarily living at Fort McDowell.
Awipukpa, where people below the Red Rocks, people below the mountain.
There are the Yavapai, who are the Prescott area Yavapais, and mainly part of the Yavapai Prescott tribe. And then there are the Western Yavapais, who are the Tolkapayas.
They call them the Southern Yavapai.
For example, Yuma Frank, who was an important chief among the Fort McDowell Yavapais, was actually a Tolkapaya. But those are the 4 remaining Yavapai sub-tribes today.
At one time there used to be a 5th band that they called, I believe, the Matquarapaya. And they were more down in southern Arizona. We also have a band of Yavapai down in Baja California that we call the Pai Pai.
But I feel that they're not gone. I think they just evolved with the river people.
The Yavapai occupied over 1 million acres, which included central Arizona.
According to the federal government, they say that we occupied over 10 million acres of Arizona, which is basically all of central Arizona.
From the oral stories that I know of and what we've read is over 50 million acres from Wimuni, which is San Francisco Peaks, all the way down to the Catalina Mountains.
History says at least 12 million acres.
Whatever the exact figure is, it was a huge amount of territory. We occupied the majority of central Arizona.
Oral tradition tells us that it ranged from San Francisco Peak over to present-day Kingman, down the Colorado River into parts of Southern California, into parts of Mexico, then back up from the Pinal Mountains, Madison Mountains, Mogollon Rim, and all the way back up to San Francisco Peak. That was once traditionally Yavapai territory, and that huge piece of land was divided up into our different bands, and so our different bands occupied different portions of that area.
It was a huge amount of territory that bordered tribal peoples to the north, south, east, and west. But we were right there in the center of it all in central Arizona, occupying a large amount of territory.
Back then, Yavapai men were given the task to hunt. They were, for the most part, throughout their days, not at the campsite. They were off hunting because hunting involved tracking, so it'd be usually with a group of men. They would go out and they would usually know whereabouts the deer or mountain sheep were located at.
But their role, they were the ones that made the clothes. They were the hunters. They were the ones that went out to war.
For the women, it was pretty much the same. During gathering seasons such as spring, a lot of times they would take the younger daughters and out, or the grandparents as well, and there they would gather wild berries, acorns, and different things that they would prepare for.
The women did a lot of hard work. That's why they're always saying that the women are the backbone of the families, of the communities.
It's kind of our belief that the children spent majority of their time with the grandparents, because that's where the wisdom and the true learning was going to come from, because it was our belief that the elders had lived longer. They knew where to gather a lot of stuff, and so a lot of times the kids spent majority time with the elders.
It wasn't until the child reached puberty where they were given more tasks to do. So if it was a girl that that reached puberty, she would be really hands-on, helping with the gathering, being taught a lot more than what a toddler would be taught.
And then when they started to get into more, I guess like teen years, they would actually split them up, and it was our belief that the girls would stick with the girls and the boys would stick with the boys, and so the boys would actually go off with the grandfathers and the fathers, and they would go out, and when their voice would change, for the boys, they would actually take them out and they would actually go have them do their first hunt and bring that back, and they would give it to the people in the community.
And they would be showing him how to string up a bow right, how to make certain instruments for his life, for hunting.
And so when the girls, when they would hit puberty, they would put them through a big old ceremony that the girls went through. And it was like, when the babies are real small, they put them in cradle boards, and the mothers would just kind of hang them on a tree and prop them up near something, and they would just kind of observe what their parents or the mother would do every day.
Did we get along with other tribes? This is an interesting question, and the answer is sort of yes and no. With O'atam peoples, Pimas,
whom we call Jacohana. It's like our hierarch enemy. They're like our number one enemy. And that goes actually all the way back into our creation story. So the feud with the Pimas or Jacohanas actually goes way back in time immemorial, all the way into our creation story.
And sometimes they would raid our communities and take captives and bring them back to their homelands. And vice versa, sometimes we would raid their communities and take captives, and those people could be incorporated into our groups. But we definitely considered them enemies, and they were our primary enemies to the south. We had interesting relations with other Pai groups, sometimes peaceful, but also sometimes hostile.
We got along with the Maricopas, the Mojave, the Yavapai, the Supais, the Hopis are, I guess, like our main tribe that we got along with.
There's a long-standing history with the Yavapais and the Hopis. There is many stories of Hopis and Yavapais interacting as well as through trade. And the Dolkapaya on the southern side that lived around Arlington and around that area, they actually teamed up with the Chimweve to fight against the some of the Pimas or the Jacohanas that were coming up from Gila Bend. So there's a long feud in that specific region of Gila Bend where is prominent Western Yavapai or Dolkapaya.
But we were also frequently at war with Apache peoples and had hostile exchanges. And I think that the reason for all of this is that if you look at where Yavapai territory is, it's right in the middle of Arizona. It's in the most fertile area. It's where the Verde River and all of its tributaries are. It's the best land for farming. Game is plentiful. And so we really had the best land in central Arizona, and other tribes wanted to try to have part of this as well and have access to that land and to those resources. And so that put us at odds with them at times so that we fought. And it really has to do with our territory being the best lands in central Arizona.
The Yavapai prominently lived in a specific style home, which we call a wambunva. It's like a round dome home that was usually covered with cottonwood or willow branches.
The wambunva, they had two types. The winter home, which was made of bare grass, and mud. And then they had the summer home, which was the willow, the brush, which was quick to move. So, but the bare grass was like it was described before, and they were turned over so the water could run off. And that's what they stayed in the winter besides the caves.
And then they had what they call a wasielva, which is just an arbor, but that was a home to a lot of the people out here. Remember growing up under a huge wasielva.
As it's written, some families would go up into the caves and they would live in some of those abandoned caves. They would build fires and live there.
Traditionally, the Yavapai woman wore a grass skirt that was made out of the inside of a willow bark or the inside of a mesquite bark. In between the actual tree trunk and the bark, there's a lot of these little fibers that they would get and pound out, and it would make like a grass skirt. And so they would fashion that together with yucca string and make a skirt out of it.
There are some historical photos where you see some Yavapai women are topless. They're naked. Some of them just have glass beads that they would wear as decoration.
But when they went to the fort, the women, be it the cavalry women, because our women were very beautiful, our men were very handsome, and they kind of got intimidated because they didn't want to see them walking around with no top.
The military wives of the officers didn't like the Yavapai women walking around bare-chested, so they actually threw them old nightgowns and told them to cover up. And so the women, seeing that it was pretty easy to make it, so they actually started to save flour sacks. Back in the day, they had a ration day, or they call it like mustering day or counting days, where they would go around and give our people portions of food, and in there was always flour. And my grandma told me that the flour sacks back then used to have a lot of floral designs on there, and the women liked a lot of floral designs, and so they would save those and they would strip them up and make them into dresses.
But if you notice, I think they kind of got the design from the Mexicans. If you notice the skirts that the the Mexicans wear, it has that kind of same design, but that was just done to cover up.
So with the men, pre-reservation, again, they mostly wore a specific gown that went from the front to the back, and they were shirtless for the most part. Again, they were adorned with beads, whether it be glass beads or specific shell beads. And they would come down right here to the chest, and you had others that had beads that were around the wrist.
During the winter times, they would actually wear buckskin dresses. The men actually wore a loincloth during the summer months. During the winter months, they would actually wear like leather chaps, and then they actually made like a leather poncho to go along with it. I know they used to fashion yucca sandals and agave sandals. Sometimes they even made sandals out of rawhide.
And when you got into post-reservation days, the camp dresses made their appearances, and that became what I would call the reservation traditional attire that still exists today.